Hey, Betty, I'm pregnant with Paul's baby. So, you'll let me have him, right? How about we switch brides at tomorrow's wedding? Michelle and Paul can get married instead. My sister Michelle's bombshell revelation. And even Dad, who dotes on Michelle, chimed in with something outrageous. Paul and I exchanged glances and then, with a smile, "You're pregnant? Congratulations," I said. Michelle was stunned by my unexpected reaction. My name is Betty, and I'm 27. I work as an office administrator at a company. I'm engaged to Paul Williams, who is 2 years older than me. We met at work. He was transferred back to the main office from the France branch 2 years ago. I had heard from a senior colleague who knew him that he was an elite and handsome guy returning from France, and there was a bit of buzz among the female staff. As an administrator, I was in charge of procedures related to personnel transfers and also served as the point of contact for inquiries, sending emails to all relevant parties. Gone are the days of filling out and submitting forms. Now most procedures are done through the company's internal system via computer, though this has increased the workload for the applicants themselves. It's particularly bothersome for salespeople who are busy with their regular duties and often out of the office. Paul appeared in front of me for that very reason. Are you Betty? Yes. As I looked up from my computer when my name was suddenly called, my heart skipped a beat. He was handsome. Have I seen him before? Who is he? I'm Paul Williams, the one who transferred here. I got an email about address changes and commuter pass applications that are due today, right? Yes. You haven't registered yet, have you? I responded formally, though I was inwardly excited about how handsome he was. Sorry for the delay. The system has changed, so I'm not familiar with it. I've been busy greeting clients today and haven't had the time. Could the deadline be extended? But if you don't apply by today, your commuter expenses and rent allowance won't be reflected in your salary. Oh, I don't want that. I couldn't help but laugh when the sophisticated-looking Paul suddenly sounded like a child. At that moment, the manager he had been talking to earlier approached. Betty, Paul was well liked by our clients when he was here before, and now that he's back from France, he's in high demand. Could you handle his registration just this once? I understand. If it's your instruction, I'll prepare the documents. Could you and Paul's supervisor approve them later? All right, thanks a lot. Paul, you should remember her name. She's quick and attentive, the manager said playfully. Yes, I will. Betty, thank you. I'll make it up to you someday. With that, he smiled, placed his business card gently on my desk, and left. What is this, a scene from a movie? My heart was racing, and I even felt grateful to the manager. But it's just a polite gesture, right? Despite thinking so rationally, a few days later, I received a thank you email from him. And in it, "I'll be waiting at the cafe on the first floor after work today," he wrote. What? Really? Half in disbelief, I entered the cafe and saw him raising his hand when he spotted me. I was already head over heels. After that, we moved to a restaurant he had booked for dinner, and more than being happy, I was nervous. But adults have the benefit of alcohol as a social lubricant. Though I'm not a strong drinker, it did help ease my nerves. He, too, seemed much more relaxed than he did at the office, and we discovered we both loved watching sports, making the conversation flow easily, almost as if it wasn't our first meal together. That day, when I got home in high spirits, Michelle said to me, "Betty, I saw you at the cafe today, right? You were meeting a really handsome guy. He's totally my type." Who is he? Darn it, Was she working her shift today? I hadn't noticed I'd been seen. Michelle works part-time at that cafe. So what if she saw me? Well, normally, it wouldn't matter. But when it comes to Michelle, things get a bit complicated. My sister, Michelle, is 3 years younger than me. She's much better now, but up until she was about elementary school age, she had severe allergic asthma and was quite frail. Our parents doted on her and spoiled her. Especially Dad, who showed her an exceptional amount of affection. Maybe because he actively participated in raising Michelle, unlike with me where he left it to Mom, or maybe because Michelle resembles him, he clearly showed her special favoritism. But then again, friends often said things like, "My parents are so lenient with the youngest sibling." Or, "My sister's so smart, so she's more love than me." So, I didn't think much of it, assuming it's a common situation in many families. It might be because of my bright and optimistic personality. I loved Michelle too, and we played well together when we were kids. I adored how she would follow me around and mimic everything I did. It was around the time I was in high school and Michelle was in middle school that her mimicking began to bother me. She'd borrow my favorite clothes or bags without asking and somehow make them her own. She had more striking, glamorous features, so when she'd say, "How do you like my new dress?" my parents, of course, would shower her with compliments. Her friends would praise her too, and before I knew it, what was originally mine would become hers. Whenever I discovered a character I liked, if I told Michelle about it, she'd quickly gather all the stationery and merchandise, making it seem like I was the one copying her favorite. Perhaps because everyone, starting with our parents, pampered and doted on her, she couldn't stand not being the center of attention. Michelle was incredibly good at drawing attention to herself. No matter where I am, before I know it, I somehow mysteriously end up becoming the center of attention in that place. It's like there's an atmosphere of, "We must praise Michelle here." Realizing this, I began buying my favorite things quietly and enjoying them alone. Sometimes she would notice and mimic them, but it wasn't really a big deal. I even found it cute that popular and beloved Michelle liked the same things as me. Back then, I had that much leeway. Things changed when she started taking away my boyfriends instead of clothes or belongings. In high school, I started dating a classmate for the first time. I made the mistake of bringing him home to meet Mom. Michelle greeted him with her characteristic sweet look, and unbeknownst to me, exchanged contact information with him and started texting and calling him. He was honest and told me about it, but he didn't seem entirely against it, giving me a bad feeling. "Betty, I've fallen for him. He says he likes me too. I'm so sorry this happened when I only wanted to get along with your boyfriend." Michelle's face was glowing as she apologized. And this scenario repeated itself. Whenever I started a part-time job, she'd start frequenting the place. When I went to college, she took a part-time job near the university. She'd insert herself into my social circle, targeting my crushes and boyfriends. Although everyone found Michelle charming, I saw the darker side of her personality. And now it's happening again. When I heard she'd started a part-time job at the cafe in the commercial building where I worked, I thought, here we go again. But since I wasn't planning on dating anyone at work, I decided to ignore it. Then, unexpectedly, I met someone at work. And Michelle spotted us almost immediately. But he wasn't my boyfriend or anything. Michelle kept asking who I had met today, but I insisted it was someone I had met for the first time and that it was just for work. I continued to keep our relationship under wraps. In reality, after our third dinner together, he confessed his feelings, and we started dating. A year later, he proposed. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, and I wondered if it was a dream. We were indeed very compatible. We enjoyed the same things and disliked the same things. In other words, we shared similar values, which I believe is essential for living together. During his proposal, he had a serious look on his face and said, "There's something I need to tell you. I'm scared you'll reject me after hearing this, but I think it's only fair you know. You can decide if you still want to be with me after hearing it." His tone was so serious that I feared what secret might come out. However, after hearing it, my feelings didn't change. Though a bit shocked, I believed we could overcome it together, and I gladly accepted his proposal. He hugged me with tears in his eyes. We visited each other's families and had a smooth family meeting. Or so I wish I could say. Michelle inevitably caused trouble. It happened when Paul came to our house for a family meeting and we were all having dinner together. "I'm home." Huh? Michelle, who I had heard would be out all day, had come home much earlier than expected. As soon as she spotted Paul, she looked surprised for a moment but quickly changed to a pleased expression. "Oh, it's that guy who sometimes comes to the cafe. Why is he here?" "Well, Michelle, Slightly shaken by Michelle's unexpected arrival, I answered. "This is Paul Williams. We've been dating for about a year and are getting married. He came over for a family meeting today." Since we were getting married, I would eventually have to tell her. Though her sudden appearance was unexpected, I decided to be honest with her. At that moment, her expression clearly changed. She looked very displeased. "I see. Well, I'm tired, so I'm going to bed. Good night." She went to her room and slammed the door behind her. What's wrong with her? She was supposed to be out with friends, but maybe something bad happened. I'm sorry for her rudeness, Paul. She's not usually like that. She's very charming and always polite. Dad and Mom took turns speaking. Paul nodded, signaling that he wasn't bothered, which was a relief. But I knew I had to talk to her later, and my stomach began to ache a bit. That night, as I was heading to the shower room, I ran into Michelle in the hallway. Caught off guard, I stumbled over my words, but she glared at me with an angry expression. "I can't believe you and that guy are dating. And getting married. You knew I've liked him all along. I'll never forgive you." She glared at me, then stomped away with heavy footsteps. I could understand her anger at having kept my relationship with him a secret. But the latter part of her outburst puzzled me. Liked him all along? They've never even spoken. She might have said he was handsome, but it felt like she was accusing me of stealing him from her. She was probably just frustrated that she couldn't swoop in and take him once she found out we were together. I sighed, hoping nothing more would come of this. It was likely she would become even more hostile towards me, but I could handle that. I needed to brush it off. Paul and I were getting married, so I'd have to maintain a minimum level of relationship with Michelle as family. I had to stay calm and composed. But should I tell him about this? If I didn't, he might face Michelle's rudeness or sense an awkward tension between us without understanding why. For the sake of our future, I decided to tell him everything. I explained that she knew who he was and thought he was attractive. I also recounted past incidents and how Michelle's personality led me to keep our relationship from her. "I see. Let me know if anything happens. I doubt there's much I can do, but..." He was concerned for me. "It's a sister issue, or maybe more like a her issue." Even if Michelle had a crush on him, there was nothing she could do to change the fact that Paul and I were committed to each other. We decided to keep our distance from Michelle and move forward. As expected, Michelle's hostility towards me escalated. She mostly ignored me, which was fine, but hiding my keys or wallet and making my daily cosmetics disappear really affected me. Dealing with such childish pranks was frustrating, but I couldn't go to work barefaced or be late. So I had to search desperately every morning. Meanwhile, she was making moves on Paul. She probably didn't realize I had told him everything. Michelle waited for him to leave the building, apologized for her previous rudeness, and introduced herself again with her usual smile. This led to a conversation over coffee, and they exchanged contact information. Yeah, the usual flow. Paul, thinking it would be odd to refuse and not wanting to escalate things, decided it was best to share his contact information. After that, Michelle frequently texted and called him, asking to meet up, but Paul always declined, citing his busy work schedule. I trusted Paul and was also busy with work and wedding preparations, so I didn't worry too much about it. In fact, since Michelle got his contact information, her harassment towards me had lessened, likely because she realized Paul was firm and wouldn't waver. This time, unlike with the others she had taken from me, we were getting married. However, my optimism turned out to be misguided. On the day before the wedding, an unimaginable situation awaited us. The day before the wedding arrived. We had chosen a chapel with an ocean view, which was a bit far, so both families decided to stay overnight at the venue's hotel. After an early dinner with both families, we all returned to our rooms early to rest for the big day. Suddenly, the doorbell of our room rang loudly. Who could that be? Paul opened the door, and there stood my entire family. Dad, Mom, and Michelle too. What's going on? I was surprised, having just been with them moments ago. Michelle had a mischievous smile on her face. Betty, I'm pregnant with his child. So, you're going to let me have him, right? Michelle's triumphant declaration left me stunned. Pregnant? Michelle, you're pregnant? Yes. With Paul's child. He'll take responsibility, won't he? I can't believe Paul would do something like this. But I heard you took him from Michelle, who was originally with him. Dad, equally astonished, chimed in. What? I was even more shocked by Dad's words. What had Michelle told him? Luckily, the wedding hasn't happened yet. How about we switch brides for tomorrow? Michelle and Paul should get married. What? Paul and I were dumbfounded by Dad's suggestion. Even if her words were true, though they were more like a sordid soap opera plot, how could a father propose such an idea at such an important moment? I had always believed Dad loved me too, despite his special affection for Michelle. Yet, here he was, blindly accepting her story on such a crucial occasion. Even if I could begrudgingly accept his naivety. Suggesting a bride swap was beyond belief. I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of admiration for his audacity. Meanwhile, unlike the clueless Dad, Mom looked perplexed. What's going on? She asked me. Having experienced pregnancy and childbirth herself, Mom might not believe Michelle's story right away, no matter how much she dotes on her. Paul and I exchanged a glance, and I spoke with a smile. Oh, Michelle, you're pregnant? Congratulations. What? Michelle looked taken aback. Having a child is a miraculous thing. Congratulations. So, who's the father? What are you talking about? It's him, right there. That's why I'm the one getting married tomorrow, not you. Paul's child? How many months along are you? 3 months. If he doesn't take responsibility, this child will be fatherless. That would be so sad, right? We've never been together like that, Paul stated bluntly. Michelle tried her signature look, batting her eyelashes. Paul, remember the night we went out drinking? You mean the night you said you wanted to surprise Betty for the wedding, so I agreed to meet you? Yeah. You got really drunk that night. You might not remember, but that's when it happened. Michelle boldly lied, feigning embarrassment. Yes, I remember getting really drunk and feeling sleepy. See? You might not remember, but that's when we... Actually, I was faking it. I wasn't really asleep. What? I'm a strong drinker and didn't drink that much. I saw you put something in my third drink, so I didn't drink it. What? Michelle, is this true? Dad and Mom looked at her suspiciously. That's nonsense. He's just trying to cover up for having been with both sisters. Are you not going to admit your lie about being pregnant? It's not a lie. If Paul marries me, Dad will forgive us. Betty just needs to put up with it. That's impossible. What? Betty, what do you mean? I didn't want to bring this up, but I had no choice to silence Michelle's deceit. I looked at Paul. I'll tell her. He nodded reassuringly and turned to Michelle. I'm infertile. It's impossible for me to have children without advanced fertility treatment. What? I felt a pang of guilt for making him say this. Even if you lie, it won't change anything. No one would marry knowing they can't have children. I told Betty when I proposed. She still wanted to marry me. The tone in his voice and our expressions must have made it clear that we weren't lying. Both my parents and Michelle were momentarily speechless. Of course, even without that, nothing happened between us. Even if there had been a one-night mistake, it wouldn't lead to a pregnancy, Paul stated firmly. Michelle's voice sounded weak. I turned to the dumbstruck Michelle. Even with such a terrible lie, we're not canceling our wedding. Michelle, you're only making yourself more miserable. I truly want you to be happy. You're my only sister. Michelle's eyes widened at my words. Shut up! Shut up! I hate that about you, Betty. You're not even that pretty, yet you have so many friends and a great guy. No matter how much I take from you, you act like it doesn't bother you. Of course, it bothers her. Paul's voice was calm but firm. I've heard about the past. There's no way Betty wasn't hurt when her boyfriend left her for you. And it was intentional on your part. Even so, Betty told me, I can't completely hate her. She's my sister, and I love her. That's the woman I love. Hearing his unexpected confession, I felt a surge of emotion. But now was not the time to be swept away by it. You're lying. She just acts like a good sister in front of you. Just now, she even congratulated me on my pregnancy. I meant it. What? Michelle looked confused, and I met her gaze directly. As I said, it's very unlikely we'll have children. We both want kids, so we're trying fertility treatments, but we don't know if it'll work. Natural pregnancy would be a miracle for us. So when I heard you were pregnant, I congratulated you. I knew it wasn't Paul's child. Mom, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. Michelle, if you really are pregnant, show us the documents. This request made it clear that our parents had believed her words without any evidence. I loved my parents for always trusting their children, but this time, that trust backfired. Or rather, it was Dad's overindulgence and impulsiveness. If it's a lie, apologize to them. Michelle bit her lip and trembled. Neither of you are on my side. Fine, you'll regret this. Michelle ran off, crying like a child. Dad tried to follow her, but Mom stopped him. You owe Betty and Paul an apology too. Suggesting to switch the bride was outrageous. She glared at him. I'm sorry, Paul, Betty. Dad mumbled in a small voice. After that, the previous day's uproar had left us in shock, but we managed to have our wedding without any issues. Michelle, embarrassed by the revelation of her fake pregnancy, didn't attend the ceremony and stormed out of the hotel. On top of that, her past misdeeds were exposed to our parents, making her feel awkward. I hate Dad and Mom for siding with Betty, she angrily shouted as she ran away from home. Normally, Dad, who always pampered Michelle, would have gone after her, but this time he said, she needs to cool off on her own. He didn't pursue her. Mom, unable to forgive Michelle for trying to steal my boyfriend and using a fake pregnancy. Unless she properly apologizes to Betty, she won't be allowed back home, she said. Knowing her prideful nature, Mom understood that Michelle wouldn't easily apologize to us. In essence, this was a way of cutting ties with her. Having always relied on our parents' indulgence and only working part-time, Michelle didn't have much in savings and we had no idea where she went. 5 years have passed since then. Now, I have a little life growing inside me. Though I was prepared, fertility treatments were tough. They drained us emotionally, physically, and financially. Even as a close-knit couple, we fought, and I lost my temper more than a few times. Regardless of who was at fault, it was me, as a woman, who bore the brunt of the physical burden. However, my husband's support and kindness saved me. We discussed things, took breaks when needed, and persevered together. Finally, this spring, we received the happy news. We hugged each other, tears streaming down our faces. This tiny life had just begun. I know the challenges are far from over. But feeling this joy makes me want to thank the baby inside me already. As I was thinking this, Paul placed his hand on my belly and said, "Thank you for coming to us." It warmed my heart to know he felt the same. Until the day we meet you, I'll protect you with all my heart. Looking up at the sky, tears welled up in my eyes again. MIL, since you're dirty, holding my daughter will cost you $1,000 each time. Being a farmer, you probably don't have that kind of money. When I went to the hospital after hearing Rosie, my eldest son's wife, had given birth, she said this to me. She insulted and mocked me for being a farmer, implying I was unclean. My anger boiled over. There had been disrespectful behavior before, but I tried to treat her equally as a relative, even if we didn't get along, because she was my son's wife. But now, I've reached my limit. I was filled with disgust for Rosie, who disrespects and insults people because of their job. And I decided that I would have nothing to do with Rosie ever again. That's what I resolved in my heart. Then, we'll just give up. Saying this, my husband and I left the hospital without giving the baby gift we had brought. I'm Risa, 63 years old. Since marrying my husband, a farmer, we've worked together in agriculture. We married in our mid-20s and were blessed with 2 sons. However, being a farmer is not easy, as there are hardly any days off and work starts early in the morning. Even so, with the help of family and neighbors, I was able to raise my 2 sons. Both of our sons have grown up. Our eldest, Evan, landed a job at a major IT company. Our younger son, Tim, became an employee at the city hall. With the children grown up, I continued working as usual but also enjoyed leisure time, having tea with neighbors. Tim married Sharon, his classmate from the local area, a few years after getting a job. They built a house nearby, so they often visit us. However, Evan was all about his job and never mentioned marriage. Around the time he turned 30, I started to worry why he wasn't marrying, but he seemed to enjoy his work too much for me to say anything. Everything changed when Evan turned 35. He brought a woman home. This is Rosie. We're dating and planning to get married. I was surprised, but secretly overjoyed hearing Evan say this, a bit shyly. Rosie seemed charming and cute. She's only 28, younger than Evan, but these days age gap marriages aren't uncommon. I was happy Evan found someone wonderful, but Rosie's expression changed when we talked about work.
What? Your parents are farmers?
Yes, that's right. We mainly ship leafy vegetables like arugula too. The veggies Dad and them grow are really tasty. We have some vegetables harvested this morning. Why don't you take them? I'd really like you to try them, Rosie.
Is that so?
Rosie, who had been smiling until now, visibly grimaced. I wondered if I had said something offensive, but didn't dwell on it as Evan changed the topic. However, it was when Evan and the others were leaving.
Oh, don't forget to take the vegetables.
When handed to Rosie, she made an overtly disgusted face and muttered, "Dirty."
What?
I couldn't believe my ears.
It's covered in soil. It's just been harvested. They're in a plastic bag, so it won't dirty your car. Make sure to wash them well before cooking.
I don't even feel like eating such dirty vegetables. I was shocked at Rosie's words.
It's not that dirty, right? It's just a little soil.
Why do I have to wash them?
Are all people who work such lowly jobs as farming this unclean? I can't even think of them as the same humans. You don't need to go that far.
I decided to marry Evan because he works at a big company and has a good income. To think his family is a bunch of farmers, it's the worst. Rosie was complaining. As I was about to respond to her insulting words about farmers, Evan, who had been getting the car out of the garage, came over.
What's going on?
Rosie was.
It's nothing. Evan, please take these vegetables they're offering.
Rosie interrupted me with a loud voice. Evan, looking puzzled, took the vegetables from my hand. Thanks, Mom. I'll call you later about the wedding and stuff. Saying this, Evan went back to the car. Rosie followed him, but when Evan wasn't looking, she came closer to me. I have no intention of dealing with a farmer MILs like you. Rosie whispered this so only I could hear. I couldn't believe Evan's partner judged and insulted people based on their job. Could their marriage really be okay? I became worried about Evan's marriage, but after that day, he was too busy with work to get in touch. I wanted to talk to him about Rosie but couldn't, leaving me with unresolved feelings. Eventually, Evan married Rosie. I subtly asked if Rosie was the right choice, but Evan seemed so smitten that my warnings probably wouldn't be heard. Though Rosie and I didn't get along, I swallowed my concerns as long as Evan was happy with her. And from then on, I avoided any interaction with Rosie. 2 months after Evan's wedding, a family gathering was planned for a meal. I contacted my sons, but Evan couldn't attend due to a business trip. Instead, Rosie will come alone.
Rosie? Is she coming by herself?
It's not far, and she said she'd be fine taking a taxi, so it should be okay. As the wife of the eldest son, she can't really skip it, right?
If she's okay with it.
Honestly, I was worried if she'd really come alone since she seemed to be avoiding our house. And my worries proved true. On the morning of the event, I got a call from Rosie. I'm feeling under the weather today, so I can't make it.
Is that so? Evan's on a business trip. Are you sure you'll be all right alone?
I think I'll get better with some rest, so don't worry. I'm going to sleep now, so I'll hang up. She ended the call abruptly. I was a bit irritated by her brusque manner, though I understood being unwell. But there was no time to dwell on Rosie. I stopped thinking about it because I had to prepare the meal. Tim's wife, Sharon, helped out, and we smoothly managed the preparation and cleanup.
Sharon, thank you as always.
No problem at all. Is there anything else I can help with?
It's all set now. Oh, I received a cake. Would you like some before you go? How about you, Tim? Really? That would be great.
Tim nodded happily, and while I was preparing the cake and coffee, a call came from one of the relatives who had joined us earlier. Hello? Is something wrong?
No, I'm just shopping on my way home, but I saw someone who looks just like Rosie. She's having a good time with an unfamiliar man. I'll send you a picture. Can you take a look?
After hanging up, they sent the picture.
What's this?
What's up? Wow. Isn't this Rosie? I thought she was unwell.
That's what I heard.
The photo was clearly of Rosie. She was walking arm in arm with an unfamiliar man, looking nothing like someone who was sick.
Could this be cheating?
It's possible, but we can't be sure with just this. We need more evidence. I was too shocked to speak. Not just for skipping the gathering with a lie, but the possibility of her cheating on Evan left me at a loss for what to do.
Even if we confront her about cheating, she might just talk her way out of it. And it's hard to tell Evan, who's looking forward to the wedding, that he might be being cheated on.
Yes, you're right. Though they were legally married, the wedding ceremony was scheduled 4 months later. Evan was busy, but making time to prepare a wonderful ceremony for Rosie. I couldn't bring myself to tell Evan that he might be being cheated on. If only we had solid evidence. With Tim's words, we all sighed. About half a year later, Rosie gave birth to a child. The pregnancy was discovered right after the infidelity suspicions arose. Despite the lingering doubts about her fidelity, I was genuinely happy about the birth of my first grandchild. After hearing about the birth, my husband and I went to the hospital. In the room, Rosie was holding the newborn.
Congratulations on the birth. How are you feeling now?
Still a bit tough, but not as bad as I thought.
That's good to hear. Is Evan at work?
He was here until a moment ago, but left after getting a call from work. While saying this, Rosie lovingly stroked the baby.
She's adorable. May I hold her?
At my request, Rosie frowned.
What? No way. Don't touch her, please. Why would you say that? Because it's dirty, right? Farmers have dirt under their nails, don't they? I can't let such hands touch my daughter.
She looked at me and my husband as if we were filthy. If you really want to hold her, pay for it. Mil, you're dirty, so holding my daughter is $1,000 a time. Being farmers, you probably don't have that kind of money. I exploded in anger at Rosie, who laughed mockingly. I had tried to treat her equally as a relative, even if we didn't get along, because she was my son's wife, but now I've reached my limit. I was filled with disgust towards Rosie, who belittles people for their jobs and makes insulting remarks. And I decided that I would have nothing to do with Rosie ever again. That's what I resolved in my heart.
Then I'll give up.
Saying this, I left the hospital without giving the baby gift. Half a year later, Tim and his wife welcomed a long-awaited grandchild. A lovely baby boy. So adorable that everything he does seems precious. Thinking about working hard for my grandson, Rosie suddenly came to our house.
Hey! Is it true that you bought Sharon a stroller and baby clothes?
She started yelling the moment she saw me, and I sighed. What's this about? Yes, we bought Sharon a stroller and clothes, but is there a problem?
Why only buy for Sharon? You never buy anything for my daughter.
That's because you called me dirty, didn't you? I thought you wouldn't want anything from dirty, farming me. At that, Rosie's face twisted in frustration.
But if I could get presents, it's different. I thought it was pointless to pretend to be nice since you're poor, but if I could get such nice things, I should have acted nicer,
Rosie said, mixed with a sigh.
Anyway, I'm surprised you could afford such a nice stroller with a farmer's income. It's a popular brand even among celebrities, right? It was expensive, but it's lightweight and easy to push, so I thought it was a good choice. And for your information, despite what you keep saying about being poor, we earn about $70,000 a year. There's no way a farmer can earn that much.
I sighed again at Rosie, who knew nothing.
Our farm is large, and we use machinery to harvest a lot of vegetables, making it profitable. Plus, our vegetables are recognized for their quality, so we sell them at a slightly higher price.
We have contracts with restaurants nationwide and sell directly, so even at higher prices, there are no leftovers, leading to a stable income.
You know nothing about farming, yet you make such baseless statements. I have no intention of associating with you anymore, so could you please leave? Wait! It's unfair to only buy for Sharon. You didn't even give me a baby gift.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to give a present to someone who calls me dirty. Besides, we always give Sharon gifts as a thank you for the help she provides. Sharon always participates in family gatherings and helps with household chores. She also happily helps me, someone who's not tech-savvy, with mobile phone operations. So, it's a way of showing gratitude to Sharon, who's always there for us. It's not strange not to give gifts to Rosie, who does nothing but says rude things. Still not satisfied, Rosie began complaining about the unfairness in front of our house. Just as I was thinking it was becoming a nuisance to the neighborhood, Evan came out of the house.
What are you doing making a scene here? ! What? Why is Evan here? I thought you were at work.
I took the day off. I had something to ask Mom. Rosie stood gaping at the sudden appearance of Evan.
But first, what's this about? Insulting my mom as dirty and then demanding gifts. How can you say such things? It's not like that, this is.
In front of Evan, who she had always tried to appear good to, Rosie started to panic.
I just told Mil to stop because she tried to touch me with dirty hands. Then she got mad and started being mean to me. That's awful, don't you think?
You don't need to lie anymore. I can't trust you anymore, Rosie.
Why? Why do you trust Mil and not me? Because Rosie, you have lied multiple times. You said you were too sick to attend the family gathering, but you were out having fun, right? And you told me you attended it.
Rosie glared at me fiercely in response to Evan's words.
Unfortunately, it wasn't me who told Evan. A relative who saw you shopping informed him.
The relative who sent me the photo had emailed Evan without mentioning the infidelity, but stating that his wife was out having fun. It seemed he didn't know about the man, but his distrust grew knowing Rosie had lied.
I heard about everything from Mom. You've been really disrespectful just because we're farmers. That's because farming is a job for the lowest of the low. It's a job for socially unfit people, and I didn't think any decent people were doing it. So you insulted Mom and Dad without knowing them, based on your own prejudices? I'm disappointed in you, Rosie. I don't want to see you anymore, so could you please leave?
At Evan's cold words, Rosie's face turned pale.
Leave? You mean the apartment we're living in?
Yes.
I can't live with you anymore, so please leave. The divorce papers will be sent through a lawyer. I apologize for what I said to Mil. But a divorce, just for that, is too much.
Rosie clung to Evan, almost crying.
It's not just that, is it?
Evan spoke in a voice I had never heard before.
You recognize the man in this photo, don't you?
Evan said this and showed Rosie the photo. It depicted Rosie with an unfamiliar man. The same person from the photo sent by a relative on the day of the family gathering.
Why do you have this? Actually, I received messages from various people saying they saw you walking intimately with an unknown man. Relatives and neighbors. Why would they talk about me?
People in the countryside love gossip.
Everyone was worried Evan might be cheated on and quickly informed me.
In small communities, news spreads fast. So Rosie being seen with an unknown man quickly became known.
It looked suspicious, so I was advised to investigate Rosie. I hired a detective, and they found a high possibility of infidelity.
At my words, Rosie, realizing she couldn't escape, glared at me with immense anger.
This is why I hate the countryside. Cheating, what about it? It's Evan's fault for neglecting me. I was lonely. If you were lonely, you should have told me directly!
I thought I would be a bother, but I won't cheat again. Please forgive me. Rosie started to cry. However, Evan's expression remained stern.
You said you were lonely because I was always working? But this report says there was a relationship even before our marriage. What's that about? Are you still lying to deceive me? That's a lie. It's a false report. The person is someone you've been dating since college, right? You've broken up and gotten back together several times. We even know his name, so maybe it's better to stop lying.
At this, Rosie's face turned pale and she began to tremble.
From the looks of the photos, you've been buying quite expensive items. I had no idea you were using my money for this. This was impulse buying due to stress. Even so, you've bought a lot of brand name products. Spending money I worked hard to earn, and on top of that, cheating? I can't trust you anymore. Wait. Anything but divorce. Please, not that. Our daughter is still young. I can't survive if we divorce.
Rosie clung to Evan while crying. I thought, if she was going to do this, she should have never cheated in the first place. It's too late now for such regrets.
I'm sorry, but my mind is made up. I'll be filing for divorce and seeking compensation for the infidelity. Our daughter is still young and I can't work. How can I pay any compensation? What are you saying? That's not my concern. You betrayed me, so it's only fair. I'll consult a lawyer I know and let you know the amount later.
Rosie seemed to realize that Evan would no longer be on her side. She stood up, her demeanor changing completely, looking furious.
You've been saying whatever you want. Don't you have a heart? If you're going to talk about compensation and divorce, then pay child support. Can you pay $100,000 right now for her upbringing until she's 20? If you can't, I won't agree to the divorce.
Rosie said this defiantly.
Men have it easy. Even if you decide to leave me, you don't have to raise a child. At least fulfill your role as a father by paying child support.
She probably said that, thinking it would trouble Evan. Rosie crossed her arms, wearing a triumphant expression. But Evan just snorted at Rosie. Fine, I'll pay.
If the child is actually mine. What?
Rosie's face tensed instantly.
I felt something off since I first saw my daughter. As she grew, that feeling intensified. She doesn't look like me at all, does she?
Indeed, seeing my granddaughter today after a long time, she didn't resemble Evan or Rosie, having lighter pigmentation. Her droopy, large eyes seemed to resemble the man Rosie was with, not Evan.
Today,
Seeing the face of the man you cheated with, I became certain. She looks like him. And if you've been involved with him since before our marriage, it's possible the child is his.
That's not true. She is your child, Evan.
Then let's do a test. It'll make things clear.
Wait. There's no need for that.
Rosie, sweating and desperately trying to explain, wasn't believed by anyone. No, we should clarify this. If the test shows she's my child, I'll pay $100,000 in child support during the divorce. If she's not, I won't pay anything.
That's outrageous. You can't test such a small, newborn baby.
It's fine. I know someone who has done tests on children. Realizing Evan was serious, Rosie turned pale and held her head. Regardless of the test results, I'm going through with the divorce, so please leave the house today.
Wait. Please, listen to me one more time. Emil, help me. You love your granddaughter, right? I'll let you hold her as much as you want. Just forgive me.
Rosie, giving up on Evan listening, grabbed my hand and clung to me. But I had no intention of forgiving Rosie after all the disrespect she showed. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't need to hold her. Please, stay out of our lives.
How can you say that?
Ignoring Rosie's cries, Evan closed the front door. For a while, there was the sound of Rosie pounding on the door and yelling, but she reluctantly left when neighbors started to gather. Evan successfully divorced Rosie, and I was also able to cut ties with her. Later, a DNA test revealed that the child was not related to Evan at all. As a result, Rosie couldn't receive child support and instead had to pay compensation. Having been kicked out of the house, Rosie sought help from the man she cheated with, but he abandoned her, unwilling to take care of the child. With no one else to turn to, Rosie returned to her parents' home. I heard that her parents' home is in Philadelphia, in an area even more remote than around my house. In such a rural area, it seems the news of her returning home after cheating spread quickly. Somehow, even the details of her being cheated on and abandoned got out, and now she seems to be living quietly and uncomfortably. After the divorce, Evan focused even more on his work and got promoted. With no one to spend his money on, he generously took my husband and me on a trip, saying he had extra funds. Evan, being such a family-oriented person, I believe will surely make a wonderful husband and father in the future. I sincerely hope for beautiful new beginnings in Evan's life.